What's up, everybody? I'm your host, Josh Newberg of On3. We're here today on a crazy Thursday morning, coming off the heels of a big recruiting prediction machine buster. Five-star David Hicks surprised us all, picking Texas A&M over Oklahoma yesterday. And we're going to get right into it with national recruiting analyst Sam Spiegelman. Sam, what happened yesterday? The recruiting prediction machine had Texas A&M at 17%. How did they pull it off? Everybody expected Oklahoma. In the morning, Hicks to Norman was trending with almost 17,000 tweets to open the day, but he ends up choosing Texas A&M. What went down?
Yeah, recruiting is fun, isn't it? Especially this year. We've had a couple of last-second surprises, thinking about Jordan Matthews picking Tennessee when Texas was running the show on the RPM, and we saw the same thing with David Hicks yesterday when he picked Texas A&M over aforementioned Oklahoma. Oklahoma had been the team that was trending since July. He openly spoke about that visit, kind of opening his eyes to what this staff was building over there in Norman, from Brent Venables to Todd Bates to Miguel Chavis. But you need to credit Texas A&M here. They never took their foot off the gas with Hicks. They offered him his first scholarship when he was in the 8th grade at Katy Morton Ranch. They recruited him at Allen. They recruited him as he's gone back to Katy Paytown, where he has several other teammates committed to Texas A&M right now. Texas A&M under Jimbo Fisher has done two things. They've recruited the heck out of the Houston area, and they've gotten some blue chip players from there over the years since he's been there. That's a major credit to Terry Price and Elijah Robinson. And the second thing under Jimbo Fisher, especially in this NIL era, is they have dominated D-line recruiting, not only in the state of Texas, but from a national perspective. Guys like Shamar Turner out of DeSoto, who was a 5-star, to Miche Adelaide out of Katy Tompkins. If that ISD sounds familiar, then you're onto something. And that was all part of their record-setting class a year ago. They signed 5-stars like Denver Harris and Bryce Anderson, Malik Sia. You know, they've had their footprint on the state. I know that the family was definitely feeling Oklahoma earlier in the week, but as Wednesday morning arrived and this decision got here, Texas A&M finally put their best foot forward and ended up with the top 10 player in the country.
Yeah, the number one player in Texas, the number one defensive lineman in America, the number 9 overall player. I saw conflicting reports all day after the commitment saying that, the Oklahoma staff was caught off guard, that they knew. What do you think? Did this catch Oklahoma off guard, or were they expecting this?
Yeah, no, I think that, from talking to coaches around the country, that not at Oklahoma, not at Texas A&M, but involved in Hicks's recruitment, there was a sense by Monday, even Tuesday, that Oklahoma was the team that was trending for Hicks. I put my RPM in for Oklahoma in September after spending week 1 in Katy, hearing what he had to say about Brent Venables and the program. And at that point, he was looking at 2 official visits to Alabama and then to Norman for Bedlam. And A&M, yeah, they were in the picture for a few unofficial visits, and they had not gone anywhere. But Oklahoma was certainly the team front and center. This is a credit to Texas A&M. He had been to Kyle Field twice in the past month. Obviously, relationships were not a question, but the staff showed him how much of a priority he was. I'm told that academics weighed into this. Obviously, relocating back to Katy, which is about an hour outside of College Station, was also a major factor for not only Hicks, but his family. And ultimately, when you compared the two, he felt that he could still do everything he wants to do on the field, in the classroom, and beyond that to play on Saturdays and Sundays at A&M.
A&M moves into the top 15 in the recruiting rankings. But do you think a commitment like this gets them going? We're not used to seeing Jimbo Fisher-led programs in the top 15. We're used to seeing them in the top 5 or the top 3. Do you think this gets the momentum going for A&M?
Yeah, I think A&M has started to slowly get momentum back. Obviously, Texas, when you're talking about that area of the country, Texas went on fire over the summer, getting guys like Arch Manning and Jonte Cook to commit, and Malik Muhammad at that as well. But since A&M beat out Texas for Anthony Hill, another 5-star linebacker from the Dallas-Fort Worth area in Texas, David Hicks is another one of those dominoes that's going to fall into place. I don't think A&M has too many top targets left on their board. I know that they'd like to add a few more to the defensive side of the ball if they could. But I think by the end of it, we're talking about Texas A&M, like you said, in that top 10, with a really star-studded class that essentially will complement the insane record-setting haul they had last year.
If you guys are watching this right now, go ahead and click that subscribe button for me. I'd really appreciate that. Yeah, speaking of big additions, there's Texas five-star DB Peyton Bowen. He's currently committed to Notre Dame. He's been committed to Notre Dame for several months now. But the Sharks are circling. What are you hearing on him? And is Texas A&M one of the teams that could potentially flip him?
Yeah, this is going to sound familiar, but Texas A&M and Oklahoma are the two teams front and center trying to move five-star Denton Guyer DB Peyton Bowen off of his Notre Dame commitment. He's been committed to the Irish for several months. He committed in January after Guyer's season, but this recruitment is far from the finish line. A&M and Oklahoma have been, like you said, circling around him since the spring, since the summer. They've both gotten him on campus in the last month. And I expect them both to get Peyton back on campus sometime before the early signing period. There were some rumblings out of Denton before Guyer kicked off this season that perhaps he would decommit, perhaps he would maybe flip to one of these schools and put a bow in his recruitment and kind of focus on his senior season and a state championship run. That has not been the case. He's remained committed to Notre Dame. That's only added to the hype that either Texas A&M or Oklahoma could eventually move him off the ball. Brent Venables sees him as kind of a centerpiece to their secondary haul this year. And Texas A&M, which has swung and missed on a couple of blue chip defensive backs here and there, especially in the state, has really made Peyton Bowen a top priority. And after seeing what has happened with Anthony Hill, after seeing what has happened with David Hicks Jr., you cannot rule out the Aggies with Peyton Bowen. And there's still a few more months to go in this. And I still think that he's going to be on campus and they're going to be a team to mess with.
There's also some smoke around Texas four-star DB Ryan Yates. Yates is committed to LSU, but he's teammates with superstar Oklahoma commitment Jackson Arnold. Is there a chance that OU could get in on him? And is he a flip candidate?
Yeah, I think at this point, Oklahoma is the only team that's really threatening LSU for four-star DB Ryan Yates. And a big reason why is the guy that you mentioned, Jackson Arnold, man, with his mustache and his play. He's an unstoppable recruiting force, and Ryan Yates and Peyton Bowen are two of his closest friends on and away from the field. At a certain point, Ryan was very open and honest that Oklahoma had impressed him. He's been on several visits to Norman. It's not far from his home in the North area. But in talking to people close to Yates' recruitment, there is a sense that he's sort of winding down. I think he's a little bit done with the recruiting process, to put it lightly. I feel good about LSU holding on here. His recruitment is slowly shutting down. Part of his family is from Louisiana. His stepmom is a big LSU fan. The staff, including Kerry Cooks, who's very familiar with the Dallas-Fort Worth area, has really zeroed in on Ryan Yates. And since he's moved to safety, he's been an instant fit with the Tigers. Listen, it's not over. With Jackson Arnold being a teammate and Oklahoma just being a drive away, they're going to try to stay in the hunt, especially as they try to find a couple more flip targets to round out this class. But I like where LSU stands with Yates, and I think that they're going to hold on until the end.
All right, so Bowen's a maybe. Yates maybe a little bit more solid than Bowen at this point, but we'll keep watching both of those recruitments. Nebraska's been fairly aggressive on the recruiting trail, considering that they don't even have a head coach right now. You and I were talking earlier. You've been confirming some official visits for Nebraska. What are you hearing?
Yeah, Mickey Joseph, Nebraska's interim head coach, spent the bye week back in the Bayou. He was everywhere in North Louisiana down to his hometown in New Orleans. And he's trying to make some noise. He's trying to, one, keep some of the guys that they have committed on board during this coaching change, which he's been a part of when he was on LSU staff with Coach Ed Orgeron. So he knows what it's like to try to hold on to these prize commits that he worked really hard for. That includes Amarion Miller, who had 7 catches, 240 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a 98-yard kickoff return with Mickey Joseph on the sidelines on Friday. Mickey Joseph was also in New Orleans over the weekend. He's going to get their top DB target on the board, Ryan Robinson Jr., back on campus at some point this fall. Ryan is going to have a decision sometime in December. So if he makes a visit out to Lincoln, that's going to bode really well for Nebraska's chances. Mickey Joseph is also trying to get TCU linebacker commit Jonathan Bax on campus. He's someone who shined when Mickey Joseph was on the sidelines over the weekend. It's a player that they're really hoping could maybe potentially take a harder look at Nebraska. We know that TCU is holding on tight. LSU is also in the mix. And one other name is Tulane running back commit Arnold Barnes, who's going to be officially visiting Nebraska this weekend. This is Mickey Joseph's second game as the interim head coach against Indiana. He's had 2 weeks to prepare for the Hoosiers. He's going to have the Tulane commit, who has 500-plus yards and 7 total touchdowns over the past 2 weeks. Kind of a breakout senior here in New Orleans, on campus in Lincoln. And if Mickey Joseph is the interim head coach and in contention for the head coaching job in Nebraska, you got to watch out for these Louisiana guys.
Yeah, Nebraska is making some waves on the recruiting trail. We're going to get Sean Callahan of Huskers Online on this show later, so we're going to talk more in depth about that, but it is kind of an interesting storyline. Texas 4-star DB Braxton Myers is set to commit today. The On3 recruiting prediction machine shows a close race. Ole Miss nearly edging out USC right now, but it's close. What are your sources hearing as the commitment is set to take place later today?
Yeah, Braxton Myers is a top 25 cornerback in the country on the On3 consensus, and he's having a stellar senior season, playing safety for Capel High School over there in DFW. He's set to announce his commitment today. He was an All-American Bowl. He got his jersey last night, so I think he's reaching the end of this little journey of his recruitment. A one-time USC commit. That's why USC is still in the mix for Matt Myers. But Ole Miss has been the team that's been trending since he visited in July. That one weekend where he was out to go make a visit, he went back to the Grove to check out Oxford. He called it one of the best college towns in America. Lane Kiffin and Sam Carter in particular, a guy that's been recruiting him since he was at Arkansas, have really made it. Have really given Braxton plenty to think about as his recruitment is winding down. I like where Ole Miss stands. I think they have a chance to hit the Dallas-Fort Worth market one more time with another blue-chip defensive back, a guy that they think can make a plug-and-play pretty quickly. USC has not taken their foot off the gas with the one-time commitment, but I like where the Rebels stand. Okay,
well, we'll watch that. That will be later today. We're almost entering flip season. That traditionally happens about November and December of the recruiting calendar. But one prospect that's hearing from a couple big-time teams is Macho Stevenson. He's committed to Texas Tech, but the big dogs are circling. Of course, the Aggies are involved in this, but also LSU. Do you think it's too late for these teams, or is Macho a real flip candidate?
Yeah, Macho is certainly creating some buzz up there in North Louisiana. He's a 6'2", 175-pound DB. He also plays offense for Shreveport, Captain Shreve. So he's long, he's got straight line speed, and he's generating attention from not only Texas Tech and Joey McGuire, who were quick to offer him and take his commitment, but now they're drawing interest from the Aggies and the LSU Tigers. Both schools, both head coaches have been in touch with the Shreveport Captain Shreve coaches in the recent weeks. They've been really impressed with the way that Macho Stevenson has started off his senior season, and both are feverishly working to get him on campus sometime over the next couple of weeks. Joey McGuire has done a really good job, and he's having almost weekly phone calls with Stevenson about holding him on, keeping him aboard. They're going to have their work cut out for him, though. I mean, with LSU, it being an in-state school that he's already visited a few times, he's expected back in Baton Rouge. Jimbo Fisher making a phone call to their coaches. I think a visit is going to be set up here in the near future. We'll see if an offer is extended, and we'll take it from there. Don't be surprised if a school like Alabama comes hunting around. They keep close tabs on what's going on in North Louisiana, and they took a top 100 athlete from Captain Shreve a year ago. I'm sure they'll be heading back sometime soon.
All right. Well, if you're a Texas Tech fan and you're trying to hold on to this one, just be ready for anything. All right, Sam, good stuff today. Thanks for coming in and hitting lead off for us. You did a great job. I'll see you on Monday.
See you Monday, Josh.
And we're back on the Inside Scoop. I'm here with On3 Director of Recruiting, Chad Simmons. Chad joins us from the airport today. Chad, what's up?
A lot of planes are up in the air right now, hoping to be on board here shortly for mine, heading up north, man.
Hey, I love it. Chad Simmons, when he has scoop, it's anytime, any place. So let's just get right into it. The number one athlete in America, Nicholas Harbor, was in Ann Arbor over the weekend for a visit. It was his first trip back to Michigan in almost a year. He's very highly recruited. Everybody in the country wants him. Does Michigan have a shot here?
Yeah, Josh. I think I view them, at least as one of the favorites at minimum for Harbor over the last year and a half. Since he started taking visits last summer. Obviously, the team, maybe with a lot of buzz around it recently, has been South Carolina. Took an OV there earlier this month, but returned to Ann Arbor. If you follow recruiting and Harbor's recruitment, his mother, who has ties to Michigan, loves that program, loves the academics, loves the culture for her son, and now getting the father, the dad on board in Ann Arbor as well, and seeing the presentation Michigan had to present to them as a family, I think definitely has Michigan in a good spot, not just with Nick, but just his overall family, not, his siblings, and I think he feels good in that culture and that surrounding, and just the overall what Michigan has to offer from a top academic public school to the great football and track program.
Maybe I should have started with this. I don't know. But I saw that you put in a brand new expert pick on the recruiting prediction machine. Why don't you tell the people all about it?
Yeah, five-star edge, Quay Russaw. He's a guy out of Carver High School in Montgomery, Alabama. I think I've said in notes and in other content and other articles that I felt Alabama's been trending for Russaw. And I just went ahead and, kind of made my stance there and made it public that I think Bama's the team to beat. He was there recently. He's going back for the Mississippi State game. He's taken an official visit to Bama in December. He's very familiar with the program. He loves Charles Kelly, Freddie Roach, Nick Saban, obviously their development program. I like Alabama right now for Quay.
Now, his teammate and fellow five-star defensive lineman James Smith was also on that trip to Tuscaloosa with him over the weekend. And there's rumors that they're a package deal. They want to play together on the next level. Why didn't you put in an RPM for him as well? What's holding you back there?
Yeah, I probably should. Probably my right finger didn't work fast enough, But no, I do think James and Quay, you always have a little bit of hesitancy when you talk about a package deal. A lot of people talk about that. But Josh, been in this business for a long time. How many actually follow through and stay together? Now, I do believe those two are serious about that. And I do think Bama is trending for James Smith there. So maybe we talk about that RPM pick on the next show. But I do like Alabama trending for both Russaw and James Smith. They're taking their trips together. So I like those guys to Bama right now.
All right, I love the tease. Both of them, though, are going to be in Auburn, Alabama this weekend. The in-state duo will be there to see their game. Do you think that Auburn has a shot?
I do, Josh. Obviously there's everything lurking around Brian Harsin and, does he keep this job? Would he even be there if the running back at Missouri didn't drop the ball at the half-yard line last weekend? But I do think they like Auburn as an overall program, an overall institution, the location, the culture, the people. I think Auburn's definitely on their radar. They've been there now a couple of times after this weekend, this season. They took an OV there. I think just they want to see what happens this season, how the coaching carousel plays out. Is Harsin there? Is he not? If he's not, who do they bring in? Who are the assistants? But I do think Auburn as a school, and they do like Brian Harsin as well. But Auburn's definitely, I think right now, if I didn't give a number 2 school to Alabama, it'd probably be Auburn.
Okay. I want to follow up on another RPM pick that you made a couple weeks ago on five-star IMG edge rusher Samuel Pimba. I was looking around and I noticed that he is going to take a visit to Missouri this weekend. There's talk of maybe an Oregon trip. When you made the pick, you weren't so sure how long his recruitment would go. Do these visits show that maybe he's still open to the recruiting process?
I think you can look into it what you may choose to, but I think with the hurricane, coming into Southwest Florida this week and seeing a lot of people scattering and trying to find safety, I think that sends him back home to Missouri. He's from St. Louis, and he's going to watch Missouri, who he did not even include in his top 7 over the summer. But the opponent is the University of Georgia. He was in Athens for a game earlier this season. From what I'm plans to be back the first weekend in October when they play Auburn at home. So to me, this is a sign of Pimba, just his interest in Georgia. Yeah, Missouri's a local school. He knows people that goes to school there and plays in that football program. No doubt about that. But I do think he has a close eye on the University of Georgia.
So you think he's kind of double dipping here to actually see UGA?
Yeah, I'd probably say more like 90-10 Georgia, Missouri, not really even double dipping. But yeah, the culture, the people, he knows people there, hometown school, all that kind of stuff for sure. But I do think he's watching, Georgia this weekend, even though it's at Missouri and he's a Missouri recruit this weekend. I think Georgia's on his mind.
Okay. One last question I want to ask you. The number 2 player in America in the 2024 class, 5-star Desmond Ricks, defensive back, he was in Tuscaloosa over the weekend. Doesn't say a whole lot in terms of where things stand in his recruitment. But early on, who do you think the primary teams involved with him are?
Yeah, I think Ricks thinks he almost said too much, maybe early in his process and early in his recruitment. Maybe he's kind of like taking a step back and trying to be a little bit more guarded about what he says, how much he says, and really when he says it. But there's no doubt that Alabama is one of the top schools in play for Desmond Ricks. I'm not sure if there's truly a favorite at this point for Des, but I think there's 3 schools to watch, and Alabama is definitely one of those. I think LSU, he was there earlier this season as well, and he took a multi-day trip to Miami, his first time on the University of Miami campus in June, spent multiple days there with Cristobal, DeMarcus Van Dyke. I think those 3 schools are the ones to watch. I think Bama is definitely in this. He spent a lot of time with Travaris Robinson and even Nick Saban on game day in Tuscaloosa. And I think the biggest takeaway talking to people that were around that visit was just the comfort level that Ricks has at Alabama.
Okay, Chad. Well, I see your plane back there is boarding right now. Why don't you tell us who you're going to see this weekend?
I'm going to see multiple guys, obviously the Northeast. I'm going flying up to Boston. The first guy I'll see this afternoon is Samson Okunlola, one of the top O tackles in the country. Took OVs to Alabama, Michigan State, and Miami over the summer. He talks about committing any time. We'll see how soon that is, but I think Miami's in a great spot there. But going to see guys like 2024 elite offensive tackle Guerby Lambert, Janelle Aguero, a Georgia commit, big-time safety up that way. So we'll hit the ground up there in the Northeast and give them some of that on-3 love up there, in all parts of the country.
That's right. All right, thank you, Chad, and we'll talk all about that on Monday. See you then.
Thanks, Josh.
Back on the Inside Scoop, and we have a special guest from Huskers Online. We have Sean Callahan. Sean, welcome to the Inside Scoop.
Hey, Josh. Great to be on.
Crazy season at Nebraska. I don't even need to get into all that's gone down, but you guys do not have a head coach. Nebraska fired Scott Frost earlier this season, and Nebraska is still aggressive on the recruiting trail. Who's calling the shots to bring in official visitors, to put out new offers? How's this happening? How's it functioning?
Yeah, it's interesting to see because we saw Nebraska make a 2025 quarterback offer yesterday. They made a 2024 in-state offer to an Omaha Central player. That was his first offer. But I think that's Mickey Joseph in a nutshell. He really wants to make a run at things. He's the interim head coach. He's operating as if he's the head coach right now, and he's going about it. They've got a really good recruiting personnel guy behind the scenes who's in his first year named Vince Ginta. He was actually Dave Aranda's personnel guy at Baylor the previous few seasons, had been at Nebraska before. He's worked for Urban Meyer. He's worked at Wisconsin. He's worked at Oregon State. So they've got a really good behind the scenes recruiting guy as well that helps kind of manage and push the buttons. And they're out. I mean, they went last week on the bye week. They went to 13 games and over 30 schools they visited as a staff just over the bye weekend alone. And, you'd be hard pressed to find numbers like that with any team in the college football on a bye week.
Yeah, they're out there pounding the recruiting trail. How is the 2023 commitment class holding up? Has there been any fractures in it? What's going to happen here with the commitment class?
Well, they've lost just one guy, Cam Linhart from IMG Academy. He decommitted the day the defensive coordinator, Eric Chenander, was fired. And that's not a surprise. He was really connected to Chenander. But the other guys have all stayed on board. And they weren't looking at taking any more than 17 or 18. I think they're at 13 right now. So, they're at a pretty good number of guys as it is, considering the situation. I mean, the key is, can they keep all of these guys locked into the class over the course of the next few months? And I think a lot of kids are in a wait and see They want to see who Nebraska hires as their coach. And then see what coaches might be retained on the staff. So there are a lot of elements to this that need to play out, and it's hard to just move around. I mean, a lot of schools are full right now. It's not like everybody has just extra spots open. So I think this will be in a holding pattern probably until late November.
Yeah, Mickey Joseph's the interim, and the assistants. Nobody really has any guarantees, including Mickey Joseph. Nobody knows if in a couple months they're still going to be at Nebraska. So what's their message to recruits at this point?
The message really is recruit to the school, not the coach. You go to Nebraska to go to Nebraska, and the school itself, the fan base, the tradition, the resources, the opportunity. You're not going there for one assistant coach or one head coach necessarily. That is a factor. There's no doubt. But you should look at a lot of things. And, they are fortunate that a lot of their recruits are local area guys. I mean, you look at the number of kids from the state of Nebraska. They've got a good chunk of those guys. They've got a guy that's from Colorado in their recruiting class right now. Kansas City recruit. There's just a lot of guys locally already committed to them. And that will play a factor. Then there's a group of kids that are Mickey Joseph players, like Omarion Miller. He's a 4-star. So, if Mickey Joseph is retained, a couple of these guys like Barry Jackson, Omarion Miller, you would think would stay on board regardless because of Coach Joseph.
Do you see any scenario where Mickey Joseph and his staff recruit so well that they are pressured to keep them on in a full-time basis?
I think you're going to have to see anywhere from 1 to 3 of these assistants retained. And I mean, that's just my guess. And I think 1 or 2 is probably the safe bet. And, Mickey Joseph might be that guy. Yeah, Bill Bush, the interim defensive coordinator, he's brand new as well. They were both on the Ed Orgeron LSU staff that won the national championship. Bill Bush brought Joe Burrow. He was the guy that stood on the table to bring Joe Burrow to LSU. And by the way, Joe Burrow is a Husker legacy, and I know a lot of our Nebraska fans watching know that. So he's one of the best recruiters out there. So those 2 guys jump out immediately. And the running backs coach, Brian Applewhite, he brought in Anthony Grant, who was former Florida State player at one time, and he's having an outstanding season for Nebraska right now. And A.J. Allen, who he brought in, is having an outstanding year. He's hurt now for the rest of the season. But there's 3 guys right there that have a lot of value that, if they were to keep anybody, those would probably be the 3 guys I would zone in on.
All right, Sean, this isn't really a recruiting question, but since I got you here, let's say they don't promote within and they go outside of the current staff to make a hire. Who, in your opinion, would be a good fit at Nebraska?
I mean, it's like a 2-hour special on HBO. I mean, there's a lot of ways you can go with this, but I think 3 or 4 names jump out today. I mean, I think Dave Aranda is towards the top of the dream list of guys. He really fits the type of coach that Trev Alberts wants, a highly intelligent, just high character guy that wins, kind of does things in the right way. I think Lance Leipold at Kansas is on that list. I think you can go. I mean, those are 2 that just jump out. Matt Campbell at Iowa State, Bill O'Brien at Alabama. I mean, those seem to be the ones right now that are getting the most steam. I like Dave Doran, too, at North Carolina State. In 2012, I know he was interested if that job would have opened. Bo Pelini verbally took the Arkansas job. Then after the disastrous Big 12 championship game, the Razorbacks pulled back and actually hired Brett Bielema over Bo Pelini. But Doran was a guy at that time I know that was interested. So would he be interested now? I don't know. But I think they can pay. That's the key. Nebraska will pay what it takes. If it's $8 to $10 million, they will have that kind of money because they're in the Big Ten Conference. And Nebraska will have that kind of revenue if it is the right coach that would require that kind of money.
All right, Sean, that's a 5-star debut on the Inside Scoop. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks, Josh.
See ya. Thank you for watching. You guys go ahead and smash that subscribe button for me. And remember to check out all the content on the On3 YouTube page.